But I'm helping with the presentation. I don't think. Well, at least you brought your sense of humor.
Okay, we're going to get started. I want to welcome Dr. Bonnie Berman. And Bonnie is the president of the Ohio Council for Cognitive Health. And previously, she served as the director of the Ohio Department of Aging. And Bonnie has been a big help already to families from our church. And I had a wonderful time just talking with her, soaking up her wisdom. And I'm so glad she'll be here for 2 weeks. So thank you so much for coming, Bonnie, and we welcome you.
Thank you so much. I feel so welcome. I've never been in a group where smiles are almost contagious. It feels very, very good. I can tell you're smiling with your hearts. That's very nice. Thank you. But I do wonder how we all are living in a society where what you can do and how you can think is what people value. Because here we know that we as human beings are so much more than that. And so this week and then next week, we have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about what happens when your brain does change and how we as a community can serve those individuals, serve our families, and think about next steps, both within our community here and then in the broader community as well. My goal is to provide whatever it is you all decide that you need and want. So I will try to be, I always say, what I have grandchildren, what listening ears should I put on? What you should put on. So my listening ears are going to be what I hear and feel from you. So please know that interrupt if it's something you're thinking about, somebody else is probably thinking about it as well. So I want to start and put all of you at ease, and that is to ask a question. Have any of you ever been on your smartphone looking for your smartphone? Now the next step is for you to tell me, yes, and I was wearing my glasses, looking for my glasses, and all of those things, and I'm here to tell you you're just fine. I am not a clinician, but you are just fine. That, yes.
Will you tell our wives that?
Let's talk afterwards. But seriously, I think that it's one thing to say we're all here to learn about somebody else or whatever, but in all of our minds, when something does happen after a certain age, we think, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me. And one of the most joyous things for me in a presentation is to have somebody in their 20s or 30s who says, yes, I've done that, and I didn't see. So what we are here to do today is to learn about some of the cognitive changes, understand the differences between normal aging, if there is such a thing, because we're all very different, of course, and some of the things we should be concerned about. And then next week, we will talk about what some of the action steps we can take as a congregation to think through this and serve. So we will divide this into to 2 parts. First thing I want to ask you is how many percentage of people, oh, not even on there yet.
Okay.
Just told you I talk a lot. What's percentage of people that are living with dementia do you think really have a diagnosis, have been diagnosed in our society, just our community, our city, our country, our state? What percent do you think have been diagnosed?
40.
Bingo, you're absolutely. It's 40.
You said I didn't leave now.
But seriously, let's think about any other major illness or cause of death. And think about if I said to you, oh, only 40% of people living with cancer have a diagnosis. You would say to me, that is absolutely unacceptable. So the question is, why is this unacceptable? Why is this acceptable? So that's something we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the stigma that goes along with dementia, which is why we allow that. The second question I want to ask all of you, and you can see I'm not going to stop till I get an answer, is what % of people who are living with dementia do you think actually live in the community versus in a care community or facility? What % do you think actually live in the community?
Probably a high number.
35.
She is wrong. Someone said over here, 90. About 80% of people who are living with dementia, I didn't mean to do.
Oh, that's fine. Oh, I knew I was gonna be right.
That's right.
I'm at 35 out of 40, so that's.
So, but seriously, oftentimes what people think is that, oh, they are the other. It's the folks who are living in nursing homes. But if 70 to 80% are living in the community, that's a whole different opportunity for us, but it's also a different obligation for us. And about 40% of those people are living alone.
Oh, wow.
And think about if you're living alone, makes me cry. If you're living alone, you're less likely to ask for help, you're less likely to seek services, you're less likely to get services. And so our mission is to really think about all of those people, in addition to the people that we would normally think about who have dementia, who are at a later stage. And so what we're going to do this morning for the next 45 minutes, okay, 40 minutes, I promise, is to introduce you to a program called the Dementia Friends Program for Faith Communities. And you say friends, why would you talk about friends? And I go back to the way Aristotle thought about friends. You know, we all have friends that are just, oh, I think I'll play pickleball with you. But then we can get to the level of friendship that it doesn't matter what you do or what happens, I am there for you. And Aristotle said that was the real kind of friendship. And I think that's what we're here to talk about today. So we're going to introduce the program, and then next week we will talk about, and well, what are we going to do with this? If there is someone that you, after this program, you said you need to be there, please know that they are welcome, even if they haven't gone through the first part. And if Tom, you say, come an hour early, Bonnie, and help those people get up to speed, I'll be here. You should see all the signs in my house, by the way. Make sure you get up and go to church. I just asked my husband, it is so embarrassing. Anyway, so what is the Dementia Friends program? The program that we are here to talk about today has really three major components. The first is this is a social movement. You're all here, I can tell you have that kind of energy. When I say social movement, this actually was a program that was developed by people who are living with dementia. And they were asked, what do you mean? Now think about it. Aren't those the people we should be asking? What do you need? And so this is not something we do for people. This is a program where we do it because this is what people tell us. No, nothing about us without us. That is always my motto. Nothing without them. Nothing about them without them. And so one of the things that they said is people don't understand us. There is this stigma. People walk away. People are scared they're going to catch it. We just want to be understood. And so that's part of this program today. There are 5 key messages, and we will go through those. And then it is no longer in our society enough to inform. I am not here to inform. I am here to say, once you know all of this, now what? I'm going to give you the what. I'm going to give you the so what. And now you're gonna give me next week, now what? Now what? It's up to you. It's yours. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, Tom. Now this is total honest, the door is closed. What's the first word you think of when you hear the word dementia?
Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's? Someone on this side? Kind, you could beat them.
I think of loss.
Loss? Over there?
Oh,
Old.
Confusion.
Confusion. I'll start with decrepit. Yes.
You're looking at me.
No. Everywhere, but you look like you wanted to say something. Okay, who
Memory
else?
loss.
Memory loss. Okay, I have not yet heard any positive words. Pretty bad. If you go, Tom, to the next slide. You can see that you're not alone. These are most of the words that we hear about dementia. No different than the words that you talked about today. But the bottom line is what we are going to be talking about is, yes, at the later stages, it's very, very difficult. I get it. But there is a life to be lived. There is joy to be had. There is meaning and purpose that we can help provide for individuals. And that's what we're here to talk about today. And the question is, you're saying, well, what is my role? And so if you just for a second, Tom, go to the next video, it's 1 minute and 58 seconds. And so it's very short, and it will explain kind of what this program is and how we all have a role. Or not. There you go.
This incredible device removes 50 times more earwax than cotton swabs and lasts a lifetime. The internet is already calling it.
We're going through that. Yeah, there we go. No worries.
If you saw someone living with dementia, would you recognize the signs? Would you be uncomfortable?
Well, you know what I'm going to do for the next.
Would you avoid them?
What this video would be showing is, and you can listen to it well, this is would you be frustrated? If you think about the policeman who doesn't, or the policewoman who doesn't know how to help somebody. My favorite part of this video is when a bus driver, a person gets on the bus. And they don't getting on the bus and they can't find the change. They don't know how to get on the bus.
Even the smallest step to make their world less frightening or confusing.
but
Every single one of us has.
And you see in the back of the bus in this video, what you see is the people who are trying to get somewhere on the bus. You know, they have to get to work and they are so frustrated because they're now going to be a minute late, 2 minutes late, 3 minutes late, and they're really, really frustrated. But the bus driver has been through the Dementia Friends program. And what the bus driver does is he takes the change and he puts it in and the man goes and sits down. Now, if that bus driver had, and then there's similar things with children, there's similar things with restaurants in here, so we won't worry about it. In fact, we will get you all of this so you can watch them at home, so no worries. Let's talk about what would happen if that bus driver hadn't done that. What might happen?
Person turn around and get off the bus.
Person would turn around and get off the bus, and by the way, let's say he was going to Bible study. He's gonna go home, and what is he going to say to, since you brought up wives, what is he gonna say to his wife? Sorry you mentioned it.
Couldn't get on the bus, they wouldn't let me on.
He might say that, or he also might say, you know what? Depending on how good his relationship is, I never liked Bible study anyway. Because he's at that stage where he's thinking like, oh my God, I don't want anyone to think there's something wrong with me. You know, I already know this, we've been through the Bible, etc. All those graceful cover-up things. And people say next Thursday night, where's John? He says he's not interested anymore. I am, as we talk here today, just as interested as the people who are just as interested in the people who are sitting in pews as the people who are no longer sitting in the pews. Or your family members who have said to you, you know, the nutcracker, I've seen it before, because they don't know how to get there. So we each have a role, and if you can think about the bus driver, and now you think about the server in the restaurant, and now you think about all of us. And then the last thing is this little boy who will say to Mr., I don't know his name, but he'll say, aren't you going, it's Tuesday, aren't you going to the store? And he says, yes, and he says, come on, I'll walk with you. Children, it's very important that we help our children and neighbors understand this. So there is a role for everybody. I challenge you to come up with a person that does not have a role to play in this. I like a challenge, but I'll meet it. I'll meet it. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide, which was right there. Why do we have a specific program for faith communities? I don't think I need to tell you this, but think about, you are the social fabric. You get it. People are committed to actually having a relationship, knowing each other and loving each other and caring about each other. So when there is somebody sitting next to you in the pew that says, do you have pews?
Yes.
We have seats, okay, so. And you say, she says, I've never seen you before, I don't know you, and you've been sitting next to her for 30 years. The first thing you would say is, how can you not remember me? I'm Marge. We're going to talk about how you can enhance that relationship and keep her coming, as opposed to making it a relationship where she says, oh my gosh, I felt horrible. So we are a social fabric. It's a safe place. We have to ensure that it is a safe place. We certainly understand the importance of partnerships, which is why we're here today. I don't think there is time for Tom to be doing one more thing. I think everybody would agree with me on that one. But this is the kind of thing where we all have a role. So if there is a decision to say, I want to help my family, I want to help my loved ones, or I want to help more of the people in the church, then there are all of us that can get together and say, well, this is what I could do. This is what you could do. And that's very important because it's this individualized care. And then the other part of it is, and I hope this should be important, it doesn't cost anything. Has anyone ever offered you something that doesn't cost anything, you know, to really help? That's very cool. So we have not just worked with faith-based. If you go to the next slide, please. You'll see that we here in Ohio have a very unique program. There's no other state or country that does this. And that we believe very, very strongly that you must speak somebody's language. I must talk to you about people sitting in the pews. I must talk to you about the fact that this is not about cognition. People have a soul. But that would not matter to some of the other folks. If you speak somebody's language, they can listen to you better. And so we have created, and we're the only state, yes, were you raising your hand? Oh, okay, sorry. We are the only state in the country actually that does it individually for different sectors. And I will use as an example here because Mark is here. And that if you want to be a Habitat for Humanity aging in place affiliate, and there are 2 now in the state of Ohio, meaning you're going to do remodels for people who are older and want to stay in their homes, you have to take this program that was developed specifically for Habitat anywhere in the world. So that is very exciting and kind of a claim to fame here. So I'm very excited about that. We also, if you go to the next one, we realize cultures are very different. And so we provide this program. So if you have folks who speak a different language, have a different culture, speak different languages. Now, it's very important to talk about that this is not just different languages. People from different cultures have very different needs, as you know. So as an example, some of the cultures that are listed here do not have a word for caregiver. Isn't that interesting? And when we first started, we would say caregiver, and they'd go like, we don't have caregiver. So for example, the Russian population is one of those where they have said to us, no. I said, well, I don't understand. How do you not have a word for caregiver? And their point is, it's just what we do as a family. It's just what we do as a community. It's just what we do as neighbors and friends. So I said, well, how do I say it then? And I'm telling you, it was about 6 sentences. Well, it's a person who helps when, and it's like, oh my gosh. And so this is not about just words. This is about respecting culture. And there's certain cultures where if I would say, at a certain point, the person should, maybe you should think about a care facility. And they would say, that is our responsibility. I promised mom or dad I would take care of them, and I will take care of them no matter what. And that's a real issue because we also have to care for ourselves. So it's very, very important. Next slide, please. So what do we need to know? And I think this is one of the very important things to know. Dementia is not a disease. Dementia is a series of symptoms, and most people will think of it as dementia and Alzheimer's is the exact same thing, and they are not. Alzheimer's, about 60 to 80% of the dementias is absolutely Alzheimer's, and we can talk about at a later date all the different kinds of dementia, but dementia is a series of symptoms. But the most important thing to keep in mind is they are symptoms that interfere with your ability to get through the day. So if, and I'm sure no one in this room has done this, you have gone upstairs to get something, right? And yeah. And you know what you do then? And you don't have to admit this, you go downstairs. And once you're downstairs, you remember what you went upstairs for some reason, and then you go up and you get it. So that kind of memory loss, when you retrace your steps, that's fine. But if what you are ultimately looking for ends up in the freezer and it's your car keys, that's very different. The first does not interfere with your daily life. You retrace your steps. The second interferes with your daily life. So that's really the defining difference. Okay, the next slide, please. So here, as I just said, about 60 to 80% is Alzheimer's. And if anyone is interested, at another point, we can go through the different kinds of dementias, like frontal temporal, Parkinsonian dementia, and some of the others, as you see here. Now, we're going to go through something that is not, we may or may not use the video, what a healthy brain is like. But first I want to show you, this is a video. This is should show you there really are changes in the brain. There really are changes in the brain. But that is not the most useful thing for me to share with you. And I think I'm not going to do the video because I'm going to just talk through this. I'm going to give you a non-scientific approach to this that to me is the single most useful thing you will get out of today. So if you choose to leave after this, I get it. And it's called the bookcase story, totally non-scientific. So let's say it's a bookcase here. No, there is not. But let's say there was a bookcase here. And there's books on all the shelves of the bookcase, right? And there's, I hate to say this, but like an earthquake or something rattles it. Or, it just could be a child who's learning to walk and pulls themselves up on it and it starts to pull over a little bit. What are the first books that go? What are the first books that fall? Which shelf? Top shelf? Okay. Top shelf falls. What are the last ones to fall? Now, I'm not going to ask you to admit this, but how many times, and I've done this in my own family a lot, has a relative, a loved one, a neighbor said something like, what did we have just have for breakfast? And you say, oh my God, they're doing this to drive me crazy. She knows what she had for breakfast. How could she know what happened in the Vietnam War and not know what she had for breakfast, right? And even though we know better, we have that urge. Your most recent memories are on the top shelf. When you have dementia, they are the first things to go. And then now let's go down the next level, and then down at the bottom are your long-term memories. they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere for a very long time until the dementia really rocks you. And then they will go as well. So when you say, like, how could she remember that, but not me? How could she not remember me? She saw me yesterday. That's why. But there's one thing that never goes. And that's on the bottom shelf. And that's your emotions and your feelings. So when someone says to you, I'm not coming to visit mom because she's in an hour, she's not going to remember I was there anyway, or says, should I come? The answer is yes, if you make her happy. Because she will or he will remember how you made them feel. So if at the end of the day, there is no recollection of having been to the beach with you, but the joy will be there. And it is still worth it because what's on the bottom shelf is not going.
Is that scientific? Because you said a little bit ago, this is not scientific.
Well, this is scientific. This is
The fact that they would, that it's.
that all of that is fact. What's not scientific is there's no bookcase in your brain.
I get that.
Yes.
So they will remember
Yes,
the emotion.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. I just don't want to insult any physician that says, like, oh, well, there's no bookcase in there. But it's, to me, that's something that it's a great analogy and metaphor for people to be able to remember those were on the top shelf. That's why she can't do it. So I apologize. I should have said it a little bit differently. Yes.
So at the end of the day, a person in a facility, say, they're gonna be better at the end of the day. The caregivers can tell that because somebody came in the morning, or does it make any difference?
The question becomes, what does better mean?
They'll be, have a better outlook on life, let's put it that way.
Well, yes, well, but inside in their soul and how they feel, can they express it? It's unclear about the expressing it. However, what we're going to talk about in a few minutes is something called, what people call, and I don't like the word, but I'm going to use it because it's understood, behaviors. When somebody cannot use their words, they communicate through actions. So if someone is stressed, agitated, they might start really wandering or walking around the lot. They might be throwing something. They might try to go into somebody else's room because they don't have a way to communicate. What they're trying to communicate is oftentimes a feeling. And so when you say, are they going to be better? What we know is that we will see fewer what people call behaviors. That there will be a calm because what they're trying to do is communicate. And so oftentimes what we talk about is when someone is communicating when they have dementia, what we need to do is rewind. Because it wasn't necessarily what they were doing, it was what we were doing that caused the behavior. So as an example, if I'm going to insist that Mrs. Jones gets out of bed and goes to the bathroom, and what she's really feeling is, I just lie here. The only way she can express herself if she doesn't have the use of words and the cognition is to fight at you. So somebody who had somebody visiting them, someone who had a pleasant day, someone who knows that the people who were with them understood them. Yes, it's through behaviors. It's a little bit tricky. Now, we have two pharmacists sitting over there. I don't know if there are any other pharmacists. In what I was talking about, and I'm not trying to be rude, so I apologize in advance. I've already apologized to one person. Is if what I'm talking about was a pill, we'd all be taking it. We'd all be doing it, right? We have this idea that to be better is I can do something that makes them better. Let me give this to you. What I'm saying is, when I talk about rewinding, it's this relationship, it's understanding the person. when my mother was in the nursing home and they had a care meeting, and how come she stays in bed and they can't get her to go here and there? What her aide said, at 4 o'clock, she loves watching Oprah. Why do you try to take her out of bed? Now, was there anybody else on the 6th floor that wanted to watch Oprah? No, but my mother did. And there was a sign up there that said at 4 o'clock, Miriam wants to watch Channel 4 of Oprah. Respect that. That's no different than a person coming in. It's knowing the person. And as family members, as people, as part of the church community, you know each other. And that's extremely important. That's the individualized care. And when I say nothing about me without me, you got to figure out it's not what it's not what you would want. You got to know what that person would want. So absolutely, it's going to change things, not necessarily in my blood oxygen, my oxygen was 97 and now it's 98. It's not going to be that kind of change. Did I kind of answer and want to talk around it?
You did.
Okay,
That
perfect.
was a very good question.
Well, that was a good answer.
I'm just glad that is the question.
Okay, let's go on for time's sake. Okay, so. Oh, no. Okay, so we're going to go to the 10 signs that about what is dementia, what isn't dementia, so to give you the knowledge base. Okay. The first, again, make sure when you see some of these symptoms, it might be from something other than dementia, and then that's fine. The first sign, let's go to the first sign. And these are kind of, I think, important. We already talked about this one. Again, memory loss that disrupts daily life. If it doesn't disrupt your life, that's okay. So forgetting recently learned information is very important as a sign of dementia. However, forgetting somebody's names, I guarantee you there is someone in this room that is not going to remember somebody's name today, and you're going to start going through the alphabet. Right? I can get into your heads, right? That's normal. Okay, second sign. Arriving late, early. Oh, I got the time wrong. That's a problem. If I said it was 10 o'clock and you came at 6 o'clock. Trouble scheduling things. The service starts now. Why are you here a half hour late? Oops. And what about not renewing things in a timely fashion, etc.? These are the kinds of things, and just so you know, you're all going to get a copy of this, so you don't have to worry about that. Typical aging, like, okay, who here can balance a checkbook, right? It's tough. I don't know if anyone keeps a checkbook anymore. Don't tell my husband I don't. Anyway. The fourth sign, let's go on to, did I just go through the third? Let's go through the third, okay. Difficulty following a routine. How many times have you gone to the service? We know how the service goes, and all of a sudden you say, "What? I don't understand what page we're on. I thought we were over here." You've been doing it for 20 years. Let's think about that. But how many times have you awakened or just gone to the microwave now and say, like, I don't get it. I forgot how to do this. Or you look at that remote. Now, we won't use Tom as a model here who was going to get these videos going. No, we're not going to talk about that. Okay, you're just fine. Okay, number 4. Let's go to the fourth one. Confusion with time or place. How many times do we wake up and say, what day is it? But you figure it out right away, correct? It's absolutely normal. You're all wondering how I get in your heads. And I'm saying, like, oh my God, she knows this thing. But if you come on the wrong day, Bible study has been Thursday evening and it's Tuesday and you show up, that's very, very different. Fifth sign, please. Trouble understanding spatial relationships. This is something we're going to talk a lot about next week, because it can be very difficult to know how far something is, to be able to see where the seat is, because your eyes change. People don't think about that. One of the worst things we do when we think about dementia is that we associate it only with memory loss. We have a trouble with dementia wayfinding. We have trouble with spatial relationships. So that, for example, if someone has early dementia and they're getting into fender benders, the reason for that is your eyes have changed and you can't tell how far that car is. So that is a very important sign that people don't often think about. And it is that sense of spatial relationships and judging distances. Now, there may be someone that used to know how to stand at a certain distance from you, and all of a sudden they're in your face. Again, there are visual differences, visual change, which means that it's very difficult also to judge stares as well. Now, what's normal? Hello, I have cataracts. Anybody else in this room have cataracts? Vision, those kind of vision changes. That's perfectly normal. Okay, number 6, new problems with words. You know what that someone might call this? They might call this my wrist clock. Someone who has early dementia. Makes perfect sense. It's the cover up for, I can't remember that this is called a watch. It makes sense, the difficulty finding the right words. On the other hand, how many of us have been in conversations saying, it's the thing that, that's perfectly normal. That's absolutely. Okay, we talked about number 7, which is misplacing things. If you can retrace your steps and find it, you're just fine. But if they're in non-typical places, or you can't remember where, and you just cannot look for it, that's a very different situation. Okay, the 8th sign is poor judgment. Now, you're going to find somebody in a service who has known to whisper for a very long time, who is now talking very loud. What page are we on? That decreased judgment is really hard. That is a real problem. Giving money away, scams. This kind of sense of not being poor judgment is a very early sign of dementia. And of course, with that, getting lost. Walking away and getting lost. So signs and wayfinding become very important in your community as you think about next steps. The next one, and that is number 9, and this is the one that I think we were focused on the most, and that is withdrawal. I was never interested in that. I'm staying, people that are staying home now. It's a little too cold for me to come out now. I think it's 30 degrees, right? I'm not going to come out in the snow. I'm not going to do that. But we could pick you up. No, I'm not interested. Think about that very, very carefully. And with that, what about somebody who says, well, I'll just come over and bring you dinner? No, I'd rather you not come over. That disengagement, or there's probably something going on in the home, like hoarding, that that they don't want you to see. Now, as we get older, the other side of it is saying, you know what? I hate to tell you this, but I never really liked them anyway, and I am not going to spend my time with these people. I'm going to spend my time over here. So becoming weary of family and social obligations, that's just fine. You know what? I know I've always gone to the movies with you. I don't like the movies. It's okay. We have the right to self-care, right? We have the right to self-care. And the last one, and this is the one that is the most difficult for families, and the most difficult, and why it's so important to talk to children about this. And we have a program, as you saw, specifically for children. And that is, why is Grandpa being mean? Why is he talking to me that way? Do you know how sad that is? Can you imagine being a little grandkid and seeing that? But we can help and we can explain that. But this sense of that mood swings and that shift in personality, keep that in mind. And typical aging is like, you know what? I'm sorry. I understand you want to go out, but I've always watched Blue Bloods at 10 o'clock, and I just really want to watch Blue Bloods at 10 o'clock on Friday night. Oh, you like Blue Bloods? Okay, me too.
Happy endings.
Pardon me?
They have happy endings.
Love the family meals. Love them. Okay. But seriously, it's okay to become a little more rigid. We all become a little more rigid as we get older. Okay, let's move on. So those are the 10 kind of warning signs and how we separate them from normal aging. And what I'm hoping you're all doing is having a fine, she's telling me that I'm gonna go home. And yes, I will call your wife and say that you are just fine. And so there are
I'll give you her cell number.
absolutely, absolutely. So the 5 key messages, and I don't know if we click on these. The first key message is dementia is not a normal part of aging. There are too many people that say, well, of course she's like this. She's 85. No. Only 1 of 9 people over the age of 65 has dementia. Now, obviously, as we get older, that changes. But no, it is not a normal part of aging. Next one, Tom. It is caused by a disease of the brain. We've talked about that. Third, it's not just about losing your memory. That's what's so important here. And the 4th and the 5th that we're going to talk about right now is it is possible to live well with dementia. We are oftentimes in our society told there is no cure, there's no pill, there's no treatment, there's no prevention. That may be true that there is no medical treatment, but there is so much we can do to slow symptoms. And that is our job here today. Now, what we're not going to do is go through the next slide, which is talking about 5 people, and you will see this, who have dementia, who are living in the community. And you're going to say like, oh, I never really thought someone like that had dementia. And all these 5 people have different kinds of symptoms, and you'll be able to see this. So Tom, don't worry about it. Now, we're going to just go right now into the next. Okay. So a couple of things that we're going to end for the next 10 minutes on. The first is everyday tasks are hard for someone with dementia. If you go to the next slide, and I'm going to just go right here. If I said to you, list the tasks of getting to the service today, you'd say, you get in your car, you've always gone, I mean, like maybe 3, 4. And then we're going to go through those, but also think of a simple one of brushing your teeth. You say, well, how come she doesn't brush her teeth anymore? And mom's going to say, or your spouse or significant other, oh, I already brushed my teeth, because they can't remember how. And then we've got the tooth decay, and that's a real problem because what the decay is very, very close to the brain. But anyway, if you think about how many steps it takes to brush your teeth, we have come up with 48 steps to brush your teeth. You may say, well, if we don't have the time, but we would think about it, and you'd say, well, first of all, you've got to find the bathroom. You've got to know which toothbrush is yours. What do you actually do with a toothbrush? You say, well, put the toothpaste on. Well, which side do you put the toothpaste on? How do you put toothpaste on? Oh, you have to open it. Oh, and then you squeeze. Wait a minute. Do you stop squeezing or do you keep squeezing? So it goes, and can you imagine squeezing and keeping the top on? We've all seen people do that, etc. And so it's everyday tasks. Be kind, because everyday tasks are not as easy as you think they are. So when we look at everyday task of going to here. Go to the next one, please. Oh, no, did we go through a few of those already? Go back for a second. Yeah, there are a lot. We've got a lot, and I'm sure you can come up with more. And I will tell you, I will admit this, I do not think I have dementia, but I had trouble finding 222. Because like I was supposed to go this way, but then it was this way.
And the church is very confusing. That is not the dementia.
Okay, we've got a place to start. Okay, let's go through very quickly now the kinds of things that we are going to be focused on in the future. I want you to leave with an understanding of how to communicate with someone with dementia. This is really, really important. Because when I said to you before, well, wait a minute, she says, I've never seen you before. You've been sitting in the pew next to 30 years. What are you going to do? The first thing to say is, I'm Mary. Janet, we've been sitting together for 30 years. Now think about how Janet feels. On the other hand, if you said, she says, do I know you? Hi, I'm Mary. I don't know if we've met, Jane. Who does that hurt? It doesn't hurt anybody, but it helps because it was now a nice interaction. So first is eye contact, body language. Now, when we say don't cover your mouth, COVID was very, very difficult for people with dementia. We're not going to go into that. But body language, I have to tell you that I had fairly recently someone who I told, and you're going to be the next thing here, is to come up from the front. They did not come from the front to their husband. He was living in a care community. Came from the side. What she didn't realize, remember we talked about eye changes? There were eye changes. He could not see her. His peripheral vision had changed. He had been through the war. He thought he was being attacked. He beat her up. Very sad. She had called me because she said, you told me to come from the front. I shouldn't have done it. She went and kissed him and he thought he was being attacked. So we want to do short, simple sentences as well. The key rule here is 7 words. Try not to have more than 7 words. Well, we go, how do you get into the, you park your car, you go upstairs, and then you turn to the left. Hello, that's not going to work. Separate them out. Let's just park your car. When you get up to the top of the steps, well, we'll figure the rest out later. 7 words. And if you think next, this is an important one, Tom. We're not going to take the time, but if you go, the most important lesson today is give somebody, if you press the next, Tom, just for a second while I'm talking. There we go. Give someone with dementia 20 seconds to respond. Now I want you to see how long 20 seconds is. Now, why would you have to give somebody 20 seconds? How many of you, for example, when you can't think of a name or whatever, it takes a while. And if you knew that I was going to be impatient and just keep talking, you wouldn't even try, would you? Well, we just lost our 20 seconds. That's a long time to wait. But if the person knows that you're going to be just sitting there and waiting, they may not come up with the name, but they will have tried. And if they try, they are using their brain. Part of the reason, for example, with hearing loss and dementia, because they are related, if you stop hearing things, well, you don't participate in the conversation and you stop using your brain. Hearing loss and dementia is very important for us to think through that together. Now, treat the person with dignity and respect. You all, of course, know that. Your tone of voice. Mary, we've been sitting together for 20 years. Remember what on the bottom shelf? Feelings. That make you feel awful. I'm not sure I'm coming back to church. Next one, Tom, please. Very important to the number. Avoid criticizing and correcting. If I came up to Tom and I said, it was so much fun when we were in college together. His first thought would be to say, no, we weren't in college together. We just met a few weeks ago. Remember when we had lunch at or dinner at the Chatelaine? We just had coffee. We had tea, actually. He had, you had something really cool.
Spice cider.
Spice cider, just so you know. But who is it helping for me to say that? It's not helping anyone. Now, is that a lie? When she says, oh, we just had so much fun in college. Should Tom say to me, that really was fun at college? Another way, if I say, we had so much fun in college, where am I right now in my mind? I'm back in college. And if Tom said to me instead, you really loved college, didn't you? What's your favorite course? Or tell me something about college. Now he has met me where I am. And I'm going to have so much joy telling you, I want to tell you what it really means when someone says, they're going to the submarine races. Some of you know what the submarine races are, we'll talk later, okay? That's really cool, right? And so you start being there and you start feeling it, and now Tom has brought me joy. Now, if Tom was my son, it would be very hard for him, because what he's really feeling is, oh my God, mom doesn't remember me. But you know something? The thing to keep in mind, is it about you or is it about mom? And at that point in time, it's got to be about mom. And that's why when we say avoid criticizing or correcting, we take the improv approach. If I handed you this book, you would say, I didn't ask you for that book. But in improv, you have no choice but to go with the book. So if I just gave you that, whatever that thing is, what is it? I gave it to you, you just have to figure out what to do with it, right? You can't give it back to me. You've got it. Think of the improv approach. That's what this is all about. Next one, please. Obviously, we encourage nonverbal communication. Is it, are you trying to go over there? We try to do that now. One of the things we never do, and if you go to the next slide for time's sake. Next one, let's go to the next one. We've done those. Never mind, we'll go to the next one. Okay, because we've talked about those. Okay. You don't want to say a negative. If I said to you, if there were two doors here, or there's three doors. I said, if there is an emergency, if the fire alarm goes off, don't go out that door. That would be our instinct to say, don't go out that door. Remember, don't go out that door. You never do the negatives. Because if there was a fire alarm, guess where he or she would go? Because what they heard that tone, the door, that there was something tense. They're gonna go right out that door. You always say the positive. If there's this is the door, we will go out. And so we don't ask the question, we also say, there's the bathroom. Here it is. Try not to say something non-specific. You be as specific as possible with 7 words or less. Okay. Then we did the not go there, don't go there. We try to avoid quizzing. It is so easy to say, do you remember when we went to the beach? That? No, because she probably doesn't remember that you went to the beach. Or if she does, what's the difference? Okay, what am I going to press here? All right, this one? This one. Okay, so the 5 key messages that we have, I'm going to ask you now. Dementia is not a normal part of aging. Dementia is caused by a disease of the brain. Dementia is not just about, very important to keep in mind, it is possible to, there is no reason why she can't have a great time sitting in the pew, and you can have fun as well. And there is more. There's more to the person. It is not, our lives are not all about cognition. There is a heart, there is a soul, there is, remember on the bottom shelf, that person remembers the emotions and how to make them feel. And so what we're going to do next week is take what we have learned this week, or what we've talked about, and see how you want, what you want to do with it. You may say, you know what, there's nobody here that has an interest in that, then I will go home, and that's okay. But if there is, what we're going to do is focus on a couple of things. One, what you can be doing within the church community. It could be as simple as wayfinding. It could be all sorts of some shorter services. There are many different things that we could be doing. It may be that some of you would say, you know, there's a grocery store down the street, and I saw what happened the other day. And I think that we have a role as in our faith community to learn more and to help others in the community. That might be something as well. And then what we would do is we have a train the trainer program, and we can actually train whoever would like to become what we call champions, so that you can go out and talk to youth groups, that you could go out to talk to the bank. What about the restaurant that somebody's always wanted to go to or has always been going to, and they don't feel comfortable? Can you imagine if the wait staff understood and was able to say, Mrs. Jones, how about I bring you the meatloaf? You've always loved the meatloaf. And as you stare at them and you say, that would be lovely. And it might not be that the wait staff knows that, but it could be that a significant other or something has said to the wait staff when she comes in, could you do that? What difference that would make, right? And we can do that as long as the staff there understand that. I would say, like, why would a restaurant purveyor do that? Well, guess what? At 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, they don't have a lot of people there. There is a business reason to do that as well. So we always try to speak somebody's language. And so what we're going to do in the next session is to go through some of the things that you are absolutely able to do. Have greeters. Why not have some large print for some of the songs, etc. Have reading rooms, all sorts of things that we are going to go through, and we're going to go through all of this next week. And then we're going to ask you to decide what do you want to do. And so that will be a very interactive session. And not everyone may be on the same page, and that's okay, because everybody can be at different places. That's okay. And my hope and my prayer is that through programs such as this, or your being here today, we have something so that one person's life can be made a little bit easier. There's a lot of folks who would say, well, what did you accomplish today? And say, well, I did 300 of this, or I had an impact over there. In our community, and I share that with you and in our dementia community, one life has changed. One family's life is better. Beautiful. So that's where we are. And if there is someone that you think might be interested but has not come with us today, please know I'll do whatever it takes during the week to communicate with them, do something online, whatever you need. Or I can give them a real quick recap in the next week. And please know that this is open to everyone. And I just want to thank you all so much for caring and being the kind of people that you are. So thank you. Oh, I'm thinking today. Well, I'm sorry. You are.